There are many ways to buy a landed, and actually there are three main paths when it comes to buying a landed property in Singapore. Number one, you can either buy a brand new, or two, you can be looking at resale to renovate. Three, or you can buy a land and rebuild. And each path is entirely different because one, the cost structure, the stress level during your purchase journey, timeline, and also the exit resale potential, which a lot of landed buyers do not pay attention to, especially when they're in the moment purchasing for landed. So there's a relatable story. Let me share with you some time back when two buyers came to view landed homes with about 5 million plus budget. Buyer A bought a brand new terrace house and they moved in happily with all the defects all covered and brand new appliances. And buyer B bought an older one, did massive A&A renovation. And then you know what? 3 years later, buyer A enjoyed the convenience of this home. However, buyer B doing the major A&A, he created significant value to the home after that. So who made a better decision? Neither one did because they were playing different games with different strategies in mind. So, as I go into the slides today, let me share with you the pros and cons of every decision that you're going to make for your landed home. Because these three ways that you're going to buy landed house in Singapore, there's always some key criteria for you to take note when it comes to making such a huge decision. So the big question is, let's say, for example, this time round, two buyers, different, budget between 4 to 6 million on the landed, we can come up and end up with two different outcomes. The difference is what? The difference is what is the strategy that they are going to choose for themselves, right? So as we look at the strategy over here, the three lender strategy is very simple. As mentioned, you can either buy a brand new today, peace of mind, or you can be looking at a resale where you can do major renovation or maybe light renovation if you're lucky, or just A&A to create value for the house to make sure there's addition and alterations. Or you could be more adventurous and experienced. Maybe you have someone professional guiding you on this journey. You could be looking at an old house to tear down and to completely rebuild exactly to your dream home. So whichever choice that you make, you have to be clear about the strategy because why? Each path has different costs, timeline involved, as mentioned, the stress level, and also different exit potential. Here's why. As we embark on these three paths, the key thing here is this. When you're looking at a brand new one, for example, let's say in an RCR location, we could be looking at probably the price between 6 to maybe even 7 mil. And if you're looking for a resale, of course, then there would be a choice of whether you want to do renovation or A&A. And the price range can be between 4 to maybe even close to 5 for those more move-in condition ones. And of course, older house, if you're lucky, we can get a low 3, but ideally also some of them want to price it between 4. So these three strategies, there are different conditions as you make your choice of these three different strategies. Here's why. So if we are looking at the gap method here, why the gap method has been proven effective to help you gain clarity before you make any property decision. Very simple. So whenever you align your goal and ask yourself some key questions, how long do you intend to stay in this property? A good 5 and flip? A 10 decent enough to upgrade to the next dream home again? Or maybe so-called more than 20, which is ideally your final home. And then you need to look at your assets, which is not only the numbers, also, are you comfortable? Your family, are you going to be aligned on this journey? If let's say you're going to do a rebuild, is the timeline going to suit your entire family while waiting? And finally, choosing the right property here. If you are going to be managing a year to a 2 years rebuild project, are there sufficient cash buffer to protect yourself? And based on some key criteria, what determines a good plot of land in a good location and a good facing? And some are some very simple key condition. Later, if you follow me throughout the end of this podcast, I will share with you more a 60-second guide how you can identify immediately what makes a true landed remarkable. So if we are going to look at typical buyers here, mentioned mostly who are the buyers that are looking at landed properties. It could be like you, a condo upgrader, busy professionals, and typically, let's say, for example, you need a lot of time. You don't have no sorry, you don't have time. You just want to move in stress-free, gear up on the full 75% loan. I would say a brand new one suits you very good. And the advantage is very simple. You can immediately move in. The layout is pretty modern. And for the early years, the maintenance is almost very negligible because there wouldn't be much wear and tear. However, take note, if you pay for a brand new one, then you have to accept the fact that you are paying the developer margin, the profit, and ideally the land plots might be smaller. Then again, all the premium finishing that comes in together, you have already paid for it, you see. So, however, if you look at, let's say, a resale one, okay, if you are looking at a resale, for example, the price range, if you are lucky to get between low 4, maybe close to 5 million, your A&A cost could be probably looking at, if you're lucky, 500,000 for major reno, or maybe even up to 1 million for A&A plus. So in total, overall, the exit, we might be looking at somehow maybe on the 5, close to 6 million range. And do you have all these numbers ready? Because for renovation loan, ideally the interest might be higher. And if you do set aside cash already for this renovation, do take in mind the calculation of your outlay as well for purchasing the land too. And of course, finally, let me just get this out of the way. And finally, if you are looking at an old house to rebuild, that's where it gets exciting. This is truly for those long-time planners. Long-term planners, you already have in mind, probably you have a place to stay for the time being. You want to take your time to enjoy this journey and build and learn on the process, partners together with the builders and architect to come up and articulate your perfect ideal dream home down to the details of the fittings and the choice of furnishing. This could probably gain you an additional probably 1.5 million to maybe even up to 2 million for the rebuild. Bear in mind that construction cost is rather getting higher and higher right now ever since COVID. So are you prepared for all this? So all the pros and cons and criteria, you need to really sit down and align, my dear friends. The key word is align. Align with your key members who are potentially going to stay in this house with you. That possibly also includes your extended family, maybe your parents. Do you want to have a 3-story house where the lift is going to be included? Or a 2-story is good enough, then you need to start planning in the next years to come. Do you need a granny's room at the level 1? So then again, if I were to go down some of these key things, especially if you are moving into the lender for the first time, which I believe many of you would be looking at a terrace house for the start. And of course, ambitiously, if you can find a good value of a corner terrace land or maybe even a decent semi-D, by all means, I'm happy for you. But for the purpose of this podcast, let's use the difference between a terrace 1 and a terrace 2 landed house. And we are all relating to freehold at this point. So what's the difference here? What is the difference between terrace type 1 and terrace type 2? And you may ask, and why does it matter? And for those who do not know, terrace 1 configuration includes, which the configuration is your land size minimum needs to be, you based on URA standard, land size needs to be 1615 square feet minimum. And for those terrace 2, you can be below 1006 and some are even 850 square feet, especially in those terrace 1, terrace 2 zone. So what is the difference between these two plots? So smaller, bigger. Okay, let's go down into the pros and cons. And I won't say pros and cons, the specification. So if you're looking at terrace 2, for example, very generally, the frontage is narrower. The land is smaller. Ideally, your layout will be narrower and you will have a longer house design. And if you are lucky to find a terrace 1 within a comfortable budget range of yours, you would be expecting at least the frontage, the front of the porch, at least a 6 meter in length and probably even wider than 6 meter, maybe even close to 7 meter if you're lucky. And so why this frontage matters? Because today, if you enjoy driving nice car, which I believe your family is big, and you probably need a bigger car, say an SUV, which is not included in the purchase as well, of course, you would be looking at a width when you open up the car door of 2.25 meters to be comfortable. And if you have two of them, you will be looking at a very comfortable frontage of 4.5, close to 5 meters. And if you minus off the boundary walls and the gates and perimeter, and some even come with this car porch that's with the intermediate beam in between, you want something that you can exit and enter the car comfortably. Ideally, the wider the frontage, the easier and ease for you to be parking your nice big SUV. So, and hence also, if you are looking at the resale value in the future, a landed that has a wider frontage definitely commands a way better premium with more buyers favoring this unit than the narrower ones. So as we look at the ergonomics over here, if you are summarizing here, if you are purchasing an old terrace, very simple. If you are looking at somewhere between 3+ million, that would be an ideal sweet spot. And to rebuild overall cost between 1.5 to 2 million, as I mentioned, overall here. And it is rather comparable if you do this to a brand new home. So the thing is this, you may end up having this, but you will take time, but maybe you have a larger land plot. Versus this, buying a new one, you can move in immediate. However, you may end up with a smaller land plot. So there's always a trade-off in terms of the economics over here as you compare between two scenarios. But if you want to buy a brand new one, of course, we need to understand how the breakdown happens. When the developer bought the land cost and bearing in mind their own construction, which usually at a lower cost from developers, they will factor in their own profit. Let's be fair. Okay, they're going to do the coordination and everything, the rebuild for you. And yeah, they want to command a premium. That's where they make profit. Otherwise, they're developing and taking the risk for who? And eventually, this is the retail price that we settle for. And most of the time, if developers have spoken to their own banks, we should be able to get up to a 75% LTV loan, which makes our outlay even lesser. So I tabulate this chart for you, you can immediately have an understanding of this chart to see the price point that you're going to enter. And of course, if you are looking at timeline, remember your family is going to enjoy the immediate timeline if you're going to buy brand new. And of course, for those more adventurous looking at resale, older ones, you want to do an A&A or renovation, a timeline you could be looking at 6 months or probably even up to a year. And for those with spare houses, to enjoy this journey, make sure that your family also align with you to be staying somewhere else for the time being while you build your ideal dream home, looking at a 1 year plus period to 2 years. And if you think even further beyond that, the exit here, definitely you put in the time and effort provided you do something that is functional and also highly in demand in the market, even in the near future, your exit potential could consist of a very decent profit, whereas this one could be rather decent depending on the area and the design that you buy. And finally, as you pay for a brand new one, usually the price is a little bit higher. You may need a longer time to exit with a decent profit. And of course, bearing in mind, you want to be very clear of your own decision first. And ideal, what is the timeline that you are looking at in the near or distant future before you decide which one is truly the best for you. So my name is Paul Teo here, putting people above property, serving all my beloved clients in public housing, condo, resale, new launch, and especially landed properties, my favorite since 2008. And I want to continue to serve you all for many good years to come because people are my foundation that I built the trust on for this business, and let me bring you clearer on your direction of property progression. So a quick 60-second check, my dear friends. If you're looking at landed properties on your own, just remember these three key things when you're looking for landed properties. Looking at the landed frontage width, the wider the frontage, the better and popular in the future for your resale and also for functionality. Two, land shape. Narrow plot versus wider plot, always choose the wider plot so that it favors your driving in and also gives you a more majestic experience when you're looking at the old house. And number three, your neighbors. On the left and right, especially immediately, are they older ones planning to rebuild in the future, or are they already nicely done up so they can move in together to blend into this new neighborhood? Because this all reveals redevelopment potential in the future when you resale. So with that, as I end this podcast quickly, the strategy here is this. Let me just summarize for you. Brand new, highest entry, easy to move in. Resale, you find your sweet balance between the entry and value, and eventually enjoy the rebuild journey. Longer timeline, highest potential. Okay, with that, balancing your convenience and potential, my dear friends, because your decision when it comes to landed property or any property today, it will shape the destiny of your next 5, 10, or even 20 years of your family life. Appreciate your time in watching this video. I hope you gain valuable insight in spending your past few minutes together with me. Any questions, you know who to look out for, and I look forward to seeing you in person. This is Paul Teo. See ya.